Welcome to the Intuitive Rising podcast. I'm your host, Amy Brooks. This is a podcast that invites you to remember who you are, return to yourself, and rise into your highest and best soul self. Every week, I will be sharing inspiring conversations about topics that hold keys to your awakening. My mission as an international evidential psychic medium, Reiki practitioner, and intuitive mentor is to help you rise into who you were born to be. Enjoy the show. Hey, lovely people. It's Amy Brooks here. Welcome back to another episode. So glad that you are here. How is your March treating you thus far? Are you seeing signs of spring just yet? Here where I am in Ontario, Canada, definitely starting to see some signs of spring. My favorite part of spring, other than, the warmth of the sun and, the budding of the trees and the plants, sprouting and all of that, is absolutely daylight savings time. So can we get a heck yes for daylight savings time? Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so glad for the extra daylight every single day, and I hope that it is helping you too. So we're here today. I kind of want to update you. So there's not, in this moment of time, there's not like a specific topic that I have clarity on. But as always, I do trust that the time, like when it's the right time to talk, it's the right time to talk, and that something will come out and flow and come all together. But this really is a blank slate, with the exception that I want to share some dreams with you. I know that 2 weeks ago, there was a Vivid Dream episode that came out, and I've received a lot of messages about it from other people that really enjoyed listening to that and enjoyed me kind of sharing as I was following the breadcrumbs, so to speak. And one person reached out and said, "Thank you so much for the guidance at the end of the episode about just learning to follow the breadcrumbs," and how I very easily, in the circumstances that I shared, could have just gone, okay, like, and not thought anything of it and not followed through. And then I would have been missing, the magic of the universe. Like, this is how the universe speaks to us, through a series of signs and synchronicities, right? And we have to really get in the habit of listening and following through. And that can simply be, making it something that's important versus just like, oh, that's just a coincidence, I'm not gonna like think about that more. The moment, like, I feel like the universe responds to belief. I mean, you can see this in so many different areas of life. Like, what you believe is true. Like, how many of us have heard different like near-death experience stories, accounts where a person says, your belief system is what dictates what you're going to see when you pass away and you're on the other side. Are you someone that believes in, hell and heaven? you know um how do you feel about those things? Like, maybe that's something that you see right away. Maybe you see something totally different. Maybe it is all blackness. Maybe it's not. Like, there's definitely some commonalities with near death experiences for sure. But there's also some varying differences as to what a person sees, right? Interestingly enough, when I watch like near death experience videos, there's a specific account on YouTube that I will link in the show notes here, in case that you know aren't aware of it and it's something that you'd be interested in watching or listening to. The people on there seem to have very similar accounts. Like, different things are happening, but overall there's a similar kind of message, and that message really aligns with how I experience the spirit world and what I have been taught from the spirit world in, readings that I do for other people, but also when I tap into spirit myself and when my guides and my intuition are leading me and educating me on certain different things. But then I kind of take a moment to pause, and I'm thinking, is that because all of these people that are sharing might have a similar belief system? Like, who knows? Probably not. There's probably some varying differences, but it's just one of those things to be aware of. I don't know if I was reading a book or listening to a podcast, but I do remember just hearing recently about how I think it might have been like a TikTok reel, maybe that somebody posted about near death experiences, and they were using like scientific studies and research in this TikTok reel, and they were saying, some people. Some people see hell, some people see heaven, or and what that looks like to them, or maybe you're just seeing nothing, right? And that your belief system dictates what you're going to see. And I certainly see that as being the truth in life as well, right? Like I think that what we perceive, I feel like what we perceive we are. I feel like what we perceive is a reflection of ourselves, right? Which is why when you're on the healing journey, and when you really tap into your own like self sovereignty, and you really tap into your own divine guidance and wisdom, and that's how you navigate your life based on that knowledge and awareness. I do feel like it just comes from such an empowered place. And I feel like when you are in that empowered place, you have more trust for anything that possibly comes your way. So you kind of step out of fear a little bit. Whereas there's other belief systems that are much more fear based, right? And they keep us small, and they keep us fearing because, if you're taught this is it, there's nothing beyond this, it's just blackness, your hole in the ground. That's scary, right? That can keep you. That can keep you in fear. And we know that there is a frequency and a vibration to emotions. If we're constantly looking for things to be bad, negative, wrong, unjust, scary, fearful, like that's going to show up a lot, right? And I think that that's what's happening in our collective right now. Like, what's the quote by Leonard Cohen? The something about the darkness is where you can see the cracks let the light in. I'm butchering that quote, but just off the cuff, you guys know what one it is. And if you don't, I will put that in the show notes too. Um, right now, as people are beginning to rapidly wake up to their own divine wisdom and to the belief that there is more, or even the possibility that there is more, even if one is not really, really sure yet, but at least their mind is open and they're curious. I feel like surroundings change, perceptions change, environments change quite rapidly. And if that's happening and we are rapidly kind of waking up and raising our frequency and our vibration, wouldn't it make sense that anything that is unaligned with that would be shown? Like you'd see the crack, you'd see the darkness, right? And I feel like just in a roundabout way, what I'm trying to say is that your thoughts matter and what you give power to, what you believe in dictates what you experience to some degree. And that's not to say that like if somebody's going through a lot in their life and experiencing a lot of pain and trauma and struggle and challenge, that they deserve that in any way. There is a collective element here too. So collectively, we're all influencing each other. And so, we could just be in the muck of somebody else's stuff. But all that to say, by empowering ourselves, by tapping into our own light and stepping out of fear, we become more like empowered in our pain, if that makes sense. I hope this isn't too triggering. I don't think it will be to those that are listening. But I've shared on here in the earlier episodes and a little bit throughout about a lot of the things I've been through, painful childhood experiences with a parent who struggled with substance abuse, different violent things that have happened to me, the fact that I was almost kidnapped, the fact that I choked a couple times, I absolutely had a near-death experience. Almost got married to a full-blown narcissist. All of these things over time kept me feeling in a victim mentality and kept me feeling very fearful. And even if you would have asked me about those things, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, I would have looked at you and I would have very much been in a victim mentality. Like, that person did that to me, and this is why A, B, and C is not working for me in my life. And as I began to heal and step more fully into my own divine wisdom and awareness, I became more empowered. And yeah, those things happened to me, but they're not a reflection of me. And I can become like, I can use that as fuel, like rocket fuel, literally, to become what I want to be, what I need to be, what I came here to be. And so, yeah, that's a personal journey. And if you're not yet, in the place where I am on that journey with the acceptance, there's no judgment here. But I will tell you that there's a beauty and a freedom with getting there. And I encourage you to continue to do the work, the self work. It's really not about like forgiving another person for anything. It's just about releasing the anger and the pain that you have, because forgiveness is a gift that you give yourself. So there you go. I guess that needed to be said today. Like I said, I was going off the cuff here. I'm letting spirit take the wheel. I had an interesting experience today. As you know, I'm like working more intentionally with the Akashic Records. I did mention this in another episode, how I have talked to other records readers and have asked them a question, because they know, like, I'm intuitive and they know what I offer in my own work. And I'm like, is it possible that I'm already accessing the records? Because I feel that I am, even though I'm not like, saying an opening, like an official Akashic Records opening prayer. I always do have an opening prayer for everything I do with spirit. It's kind of more like statements and intentions that I say out loud, whether I'm doing like client work or my own personal stuff. And the consensus from every person I checked in with about that was, you are 1,000% accessing the Akashic Records. And we all can access our own Akashic Records. So as I said, I've been doing that more intentionally. And today I opened my records and was asking for some divine support and guidance from my spirit squad, from my spirit guides, from any beings that want to help, any angels, archangels, divine masters, and, set the intention that I would like their help and assistance, that I am open to any and all guidance around navigating 2024. 2024 is I knew it was going to be a big year. I knew it. I've just turned 44 in the beginning of the year, January, and I had this like gut instinct that 44 was going to be big. And then as the year kind of trickles, we're now in the third month, I can see just how big it is and just like how much possibility and potential. I just heard like pregnant with potential. And it feels like a shut or get off the pot kind of year for me, which is interesting. It's a numerology year, personal year number 9. And numerology personal year number 9 is about letting go, surrendering, kind of wrapping things up. We work in 9-year cycles. So this is the end of a 9-year cycle. I'll start over again with year number 1 next year. So that in itself is kind of significant. And I know I've kind of felt like this is a year to kind of hold on for life, and enjoy the ride, not hold on to anything too tightly and just allow myself to be led, which is, I'm connecting that with my intention of literally asking to be guided and led by my spirit team. So we've got that. We've got, my oldest child turns 18 At the time of this recording, she's turning 18 in a couple days. But time this airs, she will already be 18 for a few weeks. 18 years old. So I'm going to be the parent of an adult child, which kind of blows my mind. And definitely we're entering a new chapter with her. She's graduating high school this year. That's a whole new parenting journey as well. And then we're going to be selling the home that we live in. We're going to be purchasing a new home back in my home province of Nova Scotia and moving cross country. And that's going to be, a process for all of us, I'm sure. We have been living here in Ontario for 11 years now. Our youngest doesn't know life outside of where we are. We lived in the same house, same neighborhood for his whole life. So it's a big deal. All of that, that's a lot in itself. And we're going to be settling on the other side. And then throughout all this, I'm writing a solo book and hoping to finish it this year. And I'm also creating a mediumship development course. At the same time, I'm serving clients and, doing this podcast. So there's been a lot on the go. So this is why I'm like, divine team, help me and help guide and assist me on this journey. And I pulled a card from this brand new deck that I got. I'll show it to you. Those of you on YouTube will be able to see it. It's called Earthbone Oracle, and it says, honor the concepts of rebirth and transformation. And that just felt fitting, and I was drawn to it when I saw it. And I pulled a card and asked a question about my move, and about, just tell what can you tell me about this upcoming move is how I worded it. It's good to ask your cards or ask your guides, your intuition, for kind of open-ended questions versus yes or no. This allows more kind of fluidity of the messages to come through, and more interpretations and food for thought can come through. So I asked the question, what should I know about this move? What can you tell me? And we got card number 39, which says portal on it. Portal, and it says originality, idealism, and progression. And I was like, okay, progression. I'm there for it. This is literally about new beginnings. Going through a portal and embracing new beginnings. And when you hear the word progression, this naturally has a positive connotation to it, in my opinion, at least. You're progressing, you're advancing, you're moving forward. So I took that as a heck yes, this is a good idea. I also pulled card 30, which is prudence. And it says self-assurance, integrity, and clear-mindedness. And I just noticed that the skeleton lady that's on this card is holding up the scales. My moon sign is Libra, the sign of the scales, and just about balance. And that's what this year I think has to be about. I have to not only maintain, but and be very aware and initiate initiate, I think is the best word, a sense of balance. Like, I need to have balance this year, because if you're in a year where it's like, holy shit, like, hold on kind of year, like I am, you could see how easily you could swing from extreme to extreme, right? So I think finding balance fits. So it's just like, hold on to your hat and get ready, because you're about to go through a portal of progression. So I took that as a heck yes. And actually, that aligns super well with what I'm about to share with you. But I also, in this moment, a word just came through which reminded me of what I wanted to share with you. But that word was also used this morning in the daily card guidance I put up, which is what I was going to say. And then I got sidetracked and forgot about it earlier. When I was a few minutes ago talking about how I had an experience this morning, and then I started talking about intentionally working with the Akashic Records, where I was going with that is that I opened the records for myself this morning, and then I, pulled the daily card guidance for the collective that I do on my social media. I pull the card and then I start typing up, the channeled message. Now, when I do daily guidance on my social media, I pull a card, yes, and I do use the general kind of essence or meaning of a card, right? But I'm not reading like out of a guidebook or anything like that. I truly open myself up to channel and interpret and add, and tweak things as necessary. So they can get very specific, right? And today, it felt different when I was channeling that information. Some of the words that were being used, the language, the way things were being said were not the way that I say things, right? And I thought, okay, this is spirit. And so I definitely feel like it's almost like it was a bit of Akashic Records channeling coming through um, in this daily guidance. So yeah, a word that was used was boomerang. So I saw this image of someone's, auric field, their energetic body, and seeing a knife kind of cut away as if to almost like a puzzle piece, right? Like when you remove a solid puzzle piece, I'm thinking of those kids' ones that are wooden that have a little peg that you can pull it up. You're removing, it's like you're removing yourself from your environment or from the energy around you. So I saw this knife kind of cutting a person away from their environment, the field, so to speak. And then I saw a broom, and the broom was like sweeping away any debris. And then, I start channeling, bringing through the guidance for the day. And then at the end, I said, a I'm seeing this auric field that feels like it's been swept clean. It feels like it's cleansed. It feels like it's protected. And I'm seeing like an arrow, and the arrow is coming towards the person's energetic field with the intention to permeate it, right? To hit it, but it bounces back. It's like a boomerang. It bounces back. It can't permeate. It can't penetrate the person, right? It can't penetrate the field. And I thought that was such an interesting, beautiful visual, about intentions. And when we set our intention and we learn energetic boundaries, and we do that simply by we can visualize, we can ask for what we want. I often imagine myself kind of wrapped with this yellowy golden light as a protection when I do go out and I am with a lot of people, because I, like most of you listening probably, are an empath. I'm an empath. So I need to be very up, so to speak, on my energetic boundaries. So I think this is a really good visual. If you just imagine yourself, maybe you can use that image of the sword or of the sweeping around your energetic field, knowing that this keeps you protected. And then, like this image of anything coming at you is not going to be able to permeate. It's not going to be able to get into your energy. It doesn't mean you're not affected by other things and other people. It just means you don't allow it to become you. It's kind of like if someone was in a really bad mood, you as an empath know you can read the room. Okay. So if your spouse comes home in a bad mood, they don't even have to say a word and they're in a bad mood. Right. And if you're like me, just being in the presence of somebody's bad mood kind of puts you in a bad mood. At least it does for me. And so I've been, more intentional about like when I do this energetic shield and this boundary, I'm like, nope, I'm not taking it on. It's not mine. It's not mine. So all that to say, that's what I wanted to share with you today about what happened with the image and the Akashic Records channeling. And then the word boomerang reminded me of to tell you that, but also to segue into the next part of what I want to share with you today. And that is about some dreams too. So in the Vivid Dreams episode that came out a few weeks ago, I shared and talked about some vivid dreams that I had. I shared about how to recognize a visitation, my loved one in spirit in a dream. And I shared in that when I was talking about it, how I hadn't had a visitation in a while. And uh, not that night, but the next one after that, of the day I recorded that episode, I had a spiritual visitation. And I was like, I got to share this with the people because, of course, I did. Because ask and you shall receive, right? I literally in that episode was like, I haven't heard from anybody lately. And then after I recorded it, I set my intention. Hey, loved ones in spirit, I'm game for a visit. Are you? The next night. So the next night, I had a dream with two people that I have never had a spiritual visitation with before. Both of these people have come through in spirit for me before when I was doing a live demonstration of mediumship. I went live on Facebook. This was years and years and years ago. And I had these two people come forward because there were family members who were connected to them and to me, because these are relatives of mine. And they came through and shared some very personal and healing messages. But other than that, I haven't heard from them. So, who visited me was my paternal grandparents. So, my grandfather, uh, we'll just call them by their first names. Their names were Jesse and Jamie and Jesse. And Jamie passed away in 1995 when I was 15. And so he's been in spirit for quite a long time. And then Jessie was my father's mother, and she passed away in 2000, and I feel like it was 2009, September 2009. And so yeah, haven't dreamt of them, haven't had many experiences with them since they've been in the spirit world. And so I have this dream. I'm just going to walk you through it now. All right. So I am in my kitchen in the dream, and I have a big brown box in front of me on the counter, and I'm putting things in the box from the cupboards, like spices and like baking goods and stuff. I'm packing my kitchen. And as I'm doing this, I am aware of the fact in the dream that I am overwhelmed in that situation, that I am feeling all kinds of emotions. I'm kind of sort of annoyed. I'm worried. I'm overthinking. I'm frustrated. I'm like feeling a bit, like, oh shit, am I making the right decision? Was this the right decision? Like, like when endings happen, that happens, right? Like that you're going to go through the, oh, did I make the right decision kind of thing. So I was feeling that in the stream and packing my kitchen up. Then the doorbell rings. So I walk to the front door, and Jamie and Jesse are standing there, my paternal grandparents. And I say, okay, come on in, come on in. And so they come in and they walk through the house, and they come through to the room where I'm at. And we have like a kitchen dining room that's right next to each other. And you can see them you can see both rooms from one spot. And they sit down at my dining room table with their backs against the window. And so all I can see is like this beautiful light around them. It's almost like they're glowing like angels. And they were like laughing, and they weren't laughing at me, but they were like trying to lighten the mood. They were very cheerful. I don't know if I shared before. I know I've shared about my other grandparents, my maternal grandparents, but my paternal grandparents and I mean, we didn't have a super close relationship like I had with my mom's parents. And there was some stuff, there definitely is some like trauma and stuff on that side of the family. So I didn't ever feel like I had a super close bond with them like I did with my mom's parents. And they weren't necessarily like people that I would have thought about as being super cheerful and jolly, but like their energy in the stream was like just very light and lighthearted and like really just trying to lighten the mood. Is how I felt from them. And so they're sitting there and they're like, it's okay, Amy. It's okay. They kept saying, it's okay. And I was saying to them, I don't know what if I'm making a mistake. I'm feeling overwhelmed. Like I'm making this decision for four other people. Is this the right thing? Oh my God, I'm so frustrated. I'm so overwhelmed. And, um, they kept laughing and they kept saying, stop overthinking it. You're making the right decision. Follow your heart. You know what's right. You have to go home. It's time to go home. And as I say that, I want to cry. Like it definitely stirs up emotions in me. And they kept saying, it's time to go home. It's time to go home. It's time to go home. And then I woke up and I thought, whoa, that's so cool, that they came and visited me to acknowledge they know that I might be struggling a little bit emotionally and with indecision and making decisions, but that it's time to go home. And so they were validating, from where they stand. I know that from where they stand, they would have an understanding of what was best for me and everyone connected. Because when we're in spirit, like, I mean, it's not the same as if they were here and for their own, like, human selfish reasons, we're like, no, you need to go home because A, B, C, and D, right? Like, that would be more emotionally based. But in spirit, it's less of that. It's more like, we're going to tell you what's best for you, not just what we want, right? So I know that they would have that level of awareness where they are in spirit, and that they would be saying this because it actually is the right thing to do, all emotions aside. And so I really trusted that, and I trust that. And as I woke up, I just felt this huge weight off my shoulder. Now, how this connects to the word boomerang is that reminded me of a reading that I had with a medium back in 2017. So this was before, like, things were happening. Certainly, I was having a few mediumistic things happen to me, and I was definitely like picking up on things psychically, and like I'd had things happen, definitely. But this was before, like, I really, really was pushed on the path in a big way. So this would have been like 2 months, a month maybe, before my dad passed away. And as you guys know, when my dad passed away, that was really when everything came to a head and I really got on my spiritual path. But this was about a month or two before. And I don't even know how I found out about this person. It was through some sort of like mediumship school. I want to say it's in Los Angeles, and I'll see if I can find reference for it, and if I can, then I will link it in the show notes. But somebody told me about this, and I just filled out an application on the website. Interestingly enough, I believe it said open to US residents only, and I still took a chance and just like put my application in there. And then I got an email saying that somebody would be calling me at such and such a time at my phone number. And so I was like, okay. And this was like a free thing, right? It was like a medium was learning and practicing and using this as a time to enhance their skill, right? And to practice with a person. And so I remember sitting in my bedroom on the floor in the corner with like a cup of tea and a notebook and a pen. And I was just like so anxious and waiting for the medium to call me. And she called. I was a woman, and I didn't tell her anything. She didn't know anything about me. I don't even know if I used my full name on the application. I might have just used my initial, like A. Brooks. Um, and so she calls me and she just starts opening up and telling me what was coming through. And I thought for sure that I was going to hear from probably my Uncle John. And that's kind of where my intention was, to hear who I wanted to hear from. I thought maybe my grandfather on my mom's side would come through, but I was not expecting my father's mother to come through. I was not expecting Jessie to come through, but she's who came through, and she is who spent the majority of um, the reading. Like, the majority of the reading was connecting with her, which was super interesting to me because it's not what I expected. Because, like I said, we didn't really have that relationship in life, but she came through with flying colors. She described so much about herself. She brought up like a very specific fear that I had had at the time that I was kind of ashamed and embarrassed about. I always felt like, I don't know, weird about it. I'll just be honest with you and tell you what it was. I was afraid for many years until my early 40s to drive a car. And I wasn't really sure where that fear came from. Um, I thought I would probably be a good driver, but I was just terrified to do it. So it's something I just kept putting off and off and off and off. And those of us with anxiety know that the things that make us extremely anxious, we often avoid. And that was one of those things. And there's just a series of events that led me to continually put that off. All that to say, I didn't tell her about that. Like, I didn't volunteer that information ever. Not even like some of my friends didn't even know that. Obviously, like, my close friends would know that. But she brought that up, and she's like, your grandmother is bringing up your fear of driving, and she's telling me that You have no reason. This is not a logical fear. There's no factual significance. There's nothing that you have to be worried about. This is truly a fear. It's an emotional fear, but there's no substance to it. Nothing's going to happen. You're not going to be in an accident. You're not going to cause an accident. You're actually going to find an extreme amount of freedom. And so she was encouraging me to get my driver's license. And like, as soon as she brought all that up, I'm like, well, this is for real, because nobody knows that shit. So this is absolutely for real. And then after that, she said, I keep seeing like a map, and she goes, do you happen to be in Canada? And I said, yeah. And I was like kind of afraid to admit it, because I remembered the, the disclaimer saying open to US residents. She goes, okay, I thought so, because I'm seeing a map of Canada. And she said, I don't know if you're somewhere kind of like central or in the middle, but your grandmother keeps showing me a boomerang. And she's like putting you, like little mini you, in this boomerang. And she's like trying to fling you back. And she's like, it feels like kind of southeast from where you are. And she's like flinging you in this boomerang. And she keeps saying, go there, go there, go there. And I laughed, because I'm like, I know she's literally flinging me back to my home province. And she's like, yeah, like she's saying, go here, go home, go home, go home. And so whenever I hear the word boomerang, or I think about that, I always think about that reading, boomerang. And so I find that very significant, that the 2 times that I've heard from her since she's been in spirit, where the messages were from me, in both ones, she told me to go home. In both ones, she said, you need to go home. You're needed to go home. You need to go home. You're needed to go home, but also you need to go home. And so, super interesting. I wanted to share with you about that, because literally I said, that hasn't happened for a while. Hey, spirit people, come on through. And I was not expecting those grandparents. If anything, I was expecting my nanny, my mom's mom, who passed last May. That's who I expected to come through. But nope. Nope. But get this, last night, my nanny visited me for the first time in a spiritual visitation, in a dream. So I have dreamt of her since she passed last May, but anytime I dreamt of her, it was like upsetting, and it was me like being upset at certain things that had transpired after her passing. And so she was like there, but she wasn't directly involved, and she wasn't communicating with me. It was more about her passing. And so I didn't take that as a spiritual visitation. I took that as my subconscious trying to get me to work through something that needed a little bit of attention and healing. But last night she visited me. So when I woke up, I remembered this right away. And I've been thinking about her a lot lately. I don't know if I've told you the story of the clock, but if not, just a little refresher. I have this little mini, like, tabletop grandfather clock that was hers, and I have it, in my room on the shelf where there's like her ashes are there in a urn, and there's like some pictures of her and stuff like that. And there's this clock, and this clock, no matter what I do, does not work. I can't get it to like work regularly. Okay. No rhyme or reason. I don't know why it won't work. And every once in a while, it will start ticking again. And I'll be like, what the heck? Like, what's changed? Why is it ticking right now? I've paid attention. I'm like, is it happening at a certain time? Maybe there's some setting I don't know about. But no, there's no rhyme or reason for it. It's just random. And 2 nights ago, my son was laying in bed with me, and we were reading a book before bedtime. And he goes, look, because the clock started ticking. I thought, oh, and he said, Great Nanny is visiting. And I said, yeah, Great Nanny's visiting. And then last night, the same thing. He's reading with me in bed. He's like, Great Nanny's not visiting right now. I wonder why. And I said, well, I think it's like, it's more special that it doesn't happen every night. It's kind of like random, because I think that helps us trust it more, right? If it happened every night at like 10 o'clock, we might go, oh, maybe there's just something with the clock, right? But no, it's sporadic. It's here and there. And I said, I think that helps us trust it more and feel more confident in it. And he agreed. And anyways, so we were speaking of her last night. We were talking about her before I went to bed. And then I woke up this morning and I was just felt so light, and I felt so happy and joyful because I had just experienced a visitation from her, the first one since she's passed. And so in this dream, we are in my basement, and we're standing at like a countertop, and there's brown boxes everywhere, moving boxes. And she's helping me fold blankets and towels and like winter coats and just like stuff. And she's helping me fold it all. And then we're putting them in boxes. And she's just standing with me. And we there's a few like things that are said, and it wasn't anything like super substantial. Like it wasn't like she was saying anything major. It was just like a feeling of support. I'm standing at your side. She was at my right hand side the whole time, and she just was there. And it was like, when people move, um, like when one person washes the dishes and the other person dries the dishes, and you're like working together as a team. That's how it felt. It like I would pick something up, I would like fold it, she'd put it in the box, or vice versa. So we were like working in succession as a team, and we were packing boxes. So I can't like deny that there's a connection there with packing and moving, and her being my team and supporting. So I'm taking that as I'm supporting you on this move. This is the right thing to do. Now, something I didn't connect until a few hours later was I told my mom that I had a dream of Danny last night, and I told her what it was. And I said, interestingly enough, she didn't look like she passed at 95, almost 96. And she had had significant health challenges in the last 2 years. So she, started to look a lot more her age. She always looked way younger than she was. And then just in the last like 2 years before her death, she started to look in that 95, right? And she got really, really, really small, lost a lot of weight. And I said, interestingly enough, the way that she appeared to me, the way she looked physically, was like probably more like 80, right? Like not 95, like 80. And she was a very spry 95-year-old, like, let me tell you, up until COVID time. So up until like, and actually she was even driving and stuff through COVID. I think probably around 2021 is when shit hit the fan, so to speak. And then she would have passed in May of 2023. Previous to that, so like we're talking 93 years old, lived on her own in a 3-level house, had a pet that she cared for, did all her laundry, did all her cooking, did all her grocery shopping, did all her cleaning, drove her car. Like she was a boss, like truly. It was truly incredible. I just looked down, 44, 44. Thank you. I love that number. Oh, and remember I started this episode talking about how significant I knew age 44 would be. Ooh, I just got goosebumps. Um, yeah, so she's my role model, man. Like there was nobody like her. And I said she looked about 80, which like for most people was probably like late 60s, right? Like she looked young. She had the fountain of youth or something, because she never looked as old as she was. And I said, you know what? It's kind of significant, actually. I think that she would appear to me as she did when she was like 80, because when she was 80, or just before that, like 79, 80, she moved. Like my grandparents lived in Nova Scotia. And my grandfather, when he got really sick with Alzheimer's, as I shared in another episode, towards the end, my grandmother was no longer able to care for him herself. Like it just became too much. And so at the time in the province of Nova Scotia, this is back in the early 2000s, like a care facility was not covered under the province. So it was something that somebody would have had to pay like fully out of pocket for. And she knew that he would not want her to drain their life savings paying for him to be in a long-term care facility for a few years while he, had Alzheimer's. And so she made the decision that she was going to move to Ontario, which is where they had lived, prior to like the 1970s. And my aunts, my grandparents' oldest daughters were living in Ontario already. And so she thought, I'll have family support. I'll go back and move there. And, that stuff was covered under the province at the time. So that was the main deciding factor for them making that move. And she relocated a full house full of stuff, from one province to another, 1,500 kilometers away at the age of like 80 years old, which is huge, right? Like, it's a huge undertaking. And she did it. And I said, when I was talking about my mom this morning, I said, I'm connecting that. Like, maybe she showed up as that age because that's when she made this life-changing move. That's when she packed up her life and started new somewhere else. And now here I am, half that age, in my mid 40s, packing up my life to start over somewhere else. I said, so I think her coming through at that age was significant. I really, really, really do. And so, yeah, 2 spirit visitations in the last 2 weeks. How lucky am I? I feel very, very, very loved by these grandparents, for sure. Every one of them coming through to support me on this journey home. So with that, I will bid you adieu. I have loved this conversation. I hope you enjoy it too. Started off a little bit, let's see what comes through, see where it goes. And we found our way. I hope you are happy and healthy wherever you are, whenever you listen to this. Please keep in touch. If you have a episode topic, something that you'd like me to speak on, please let me know. Shoot me off a message at any of my social media accounts, and I will be sure to consider it. Take good care, guys. See you soon. If you have enjoyed this episode, please consider hopping on over to wherever you listen to your podcast and giving it a 5-star review. Thank you so much in advance. If you'd like to keep in touch, please head over to my website, theintuitiverising.com, to keep up with all the things that I have been doing. I also have a private Facebook community for people just like you. It's called the Intuitive Rising Community. All you gotta do is request to join, and I will let you in. Keep rising.